Part 1. How it all began. September 26, 1983. A Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov sat in a bunker outside Moscow, staring at a screen. Suddenly, the alarm went off. The system showed 5 American nuclear missiles heading straight for the Soviet Union. Petrov had less than 5 minutes to make a decision. If he reported the launch, the Soviet Union would fire back. Thousands of nuclear warheads would fly in both directions. Hundreds of millions would die within hours. He had every reason to press the button, but he didn't. It turned out to be a false alarm, a glitch caused by sunlight reflecting off clouds. One man, one decision, one moment between life and the end of civilization. This is the story of the Cold War, the most dangerous period in human history. Part 1. How it all began. 040 to 230. To understand the Cold War, we need to go back to 1945. World War II had just ended. The world celebrated victory over Nazi Germany. But 2 countries came out of that war as global superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. During the war, they fought together against Hitler. But once Hitler was gone, the friendship was over. The United States believed in capitalism, free markets, democracy, individual freedom. The Soviet Union believed in communism, state control, collective ownership, one-party rule. These 2 systems were fundamentally incompatible, and both sides believed their system should rule the world. In the years after the war, the Soviet Union began installing communist governments across Eastern Europe: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, East Germany. One by one, these countries fell behind what Winston Churchill famously called an Iron Curtain. On one side, the Free West, led by America. On the other, the Communist East, led by the Soviets. The world was divided in 2, and the Cold War had begun. But what made this conflict different from any war before? Both sides had nuclear weapons, and that changed everything. Part 2. The Nuclear Arms Race. In August 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over 200,000 people died. For a brief moment, America was the only nuclear power on Earth. But on August 29, 1949, the Soviet Union tested its first atomic bomb. And so began the most terrifying arms race in human history. America built the hydrogen bomb in 1952, 1,000 times more powerful than Hiroshima. The Soviets tested their own just 1 year later. Then it became about numbers. How many bombs can you build? How fast can you deliver them? By the 1960s, the United States had over 30,000 nuclear warheads. The Soviet Union had over 40,000. Combined, enough to destroy every major city on Earth several times over. This led to a concept called mutually assured destruction, or MAD. The idea was simple. If you attack me, I'll attack you, and we'll both be destroyed, so neither side can ever use their weapons. The entire survival of humanity depended on the idea that nobody would be crazy enough to press the button. But several times, we came terrifyingly close. Part 3. The Berlin Wall. After World War II, Germany was split in 2. West Germany, controlled by the US and its allies. East Germany, controlled by the Soviet Union. And right in the middle of East Germany sat Berlin, also divided. West Berlin was a tiny island of freedom, surrounded by communist territory. Every day, East Germans were fleeing to West Berlin for a better life. By 1961, over 3.5 million people had escaped. The Soviet Union was embarrassed. Their own people were running away from communism. So on the night of August 13, 1961, East German soldiers began building a wall. Barbed wire first, then concrete, then guard towers with orders to shoot anyone who tried to cross. The Berlin Wall became the most powerful symbol of the Cold War. Families were separated overnight. People woke up and couldn't visit their relatives across the street. Over the next 28 years, at least 140 people were killed trying to cross that wall. In October 1961, American and Soviet tanks stood face to face at Checkpoint Charlie, just meters apart. One wrong move, and World War III could have started right there. After 16 hours, both sides pulled back. But the worst was yet to come. Part 4. The Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962. This is the moment the world came closest to nuclear annihilation. In 1959, Fidel Castro turned Cuba communist. Cuba was just 90 miles from Florida. In 1961, the CIA tried to overthrow Castro with a secret invasion at the Bay of Pigs. It failed badly. Castro turned to the Soviet Union for protection. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev saw an opportunity. He secretly began shipping nuclear missiles to Cuba. Missiles that could reach Washington, New York, and most American cities in less than 5 minutes. On October 14, 1962, an American spy plane flew over Cuba and photographed Soviet missile sites under construction. President Kennedy was informed the next morning. He was stunned. For the next 13 days, the world held its breath. Kennedy had several options. Bomb the missile sites, but that could trigger full nuclear war. Invade Cuba, same risk, even bigger. Do nothing, unacceptable. He chose a naval blockade, surround Cuba with warships, stop any more missiles from arriving, demand the Soviets remove what's already there. Soviet ships were heading toward Cuba. American warships formed a line in the Atlantic. If the Soviet ships crossed that line, the Navy had orders to stop them by force. On October 24th, Soviet ships approached the blockade. Closer and closer. Then they stopped. Some turned around, but the crisis wasn't over. Missiles were still in Cuba. On October 27th, Black Saturday, things almost fell apart completely. A Soviet submarine near Cuba was being hit with depth charges by the U.S. Navy. The crew thought World War III had started. The captain wanted to launch a nuclear torpedo. On Soviet submarines, launching required the agreement of 3 officers. 2 said yes, 1 said no. His name was Vasily Arkhipov. He refused to give his approval. 1 man, 1 vote, 1 decision that saved the world. That same day, Kennedy and Khrushchev reached a secret deal. The Soviets would remove missiles from Cuba. The U.S. would promise never to invade Cuba and quietly remove American missiles from Turkey. On October 28th, Khrushchev announced the withdrawal. The crisis was over. But humanity had been minutes away from extinction. Part 5. Proxy Wars. The Cold War was called cold because the US and Soviet Union never fought each other directly. Instead, they fought through other countries. These were called proxy wars. Korea, 1950 to 1953. North Korea, communist, backed by the Soviets. South Korea, capitalist, backed by the US. North Korea invaded the South. America sent troops. China joined the North. Over 2.5 million civilians died. The war ended with a ceasefire, not a peace treaty. Technically, North and South Korea are still at war today. Vietnam, 1955 to 1975. Same pattern. Communist North versus capitalist South. The US sent over 2 million soldiers. 58,000 Americans died. Over 2 million Vietnamese died. It was America's most humiliating defeat. Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989. The Soviets invaded to support a communist government. The CIA secretly armed Afghan fighters, the Mujahideen. Among those fighters was a young Saudi man named Osama bin Laden. 15,000 Soviet soldiers died. Over 1 million Afghans died. The Soviets withdrew in defeat, and the fighters America armed later became the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Millions of people died in these wars. The Cold War may have been cold for Washington and Moscow, but for Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan, it was anything but. Part 6. The Fall. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was crumbling. The economy was failing. Afghanistan was draining resources. People were tired. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev came to power. He introduced two revolutionary ideas: glasnost, openness and free speech; perestroika, economic reform. He also reached out to the West and met with President Reagan. In 1987, they signed the INF Treaty, eliminating an entire class of nuclear missiles. But Gorbachev's reforms had an unintended consequence. Once people tasted freedom, they wanted more. In 1989, the wave began. Poland held free elections. Hungary opened its borders. Czechoslovakia had its Velvet Revolution. And then, November 9th, 1989, East Germany announced that citizens could freely cross the border. Thousands rushed to the Berlin Wall. They didn't just cross it, they destroyed it. With hammers, with their bare hands. People who hadn't seen their families in 28 years embraced each other in tears. The wall was gone, and everyone knew the Cold War was ending. Over the next 2 years, the Soviet Union fell apart. Republic after republic declared independence. On December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigned. The Soviet flag was lowered over the Kremlin for the last time. The Soviet Union was gone. The Cold War was over. After 44 years of fear and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation, it ended not with a bang, but with a flag being quietly folded and put away. Part 7. Why it still matters. The Cold War ended over 30 years ago, but its consequences are everywhere. North Korea is still isolated and building nuclear weapons. That's the Cold War. Russia invaded Ukraine. That conflict has roots in the collapse of the Soviet Union. That's the Cold War. The US fought in Afghanistan for 20 years against the same people they armed in the 1980s. That's the Cold War. And over 12,000 nuclear warheads still exist today. The same system that failed in 1983, that almost launched in 1979, that nearly triggered war in 1995 over a Norwegian weather rocket, that system is still running. We survived the Cold War, but not because of great leaders or brilliant strategy. We survived because of luck. Because one Soviet officer didn't trust his screen. Because one submarine commander said no. Because one president hesitated just long enough. The Cold War taught us something terrifying. Humanity has the power to destroy itself completely. And the only thing standing between us and the end of everything is the hope that someone, somewhere, in the moment that matters most, chooses not to press the button. Thank you for watching until the end. If this video made you think, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe to Frozen in Time so you don't miss our next video. We've got a lot more incredible stories coming. Mysteries, wars, disasters, and moments that change the world forever. Drop a comment below. Which Cold War moment shocked you the most? Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.